Land, culture and migration in Assam, highly contested area. The next session is going to be presenting different perspectives on this question. We have three speakers, and I'm going to request Professor Sanjoy Hazarika to come and share his views, followed by Abdul Kalam, and then we have Mitra Phukan's testimony. Sanjoy, please.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I've been a bit under the weather.
15 minutes.
I've been told I've got 15 minutes, but I'm going to be speaking from my heart as well as from my notes. So I will speak for 15 minutes, but I will not speak entirely to the text because I do not completely agree with some of the things that have been said. Assam-baki Bharatir Nagarik, Monchot Uposthit Buddhijivi, Rise, মই কিছু কথা আপোনালোকৰ সকলৰ আগত ৰাখিব বিচাৰিছো অসমৰ পৰা কোনবা কিছু গ্ৰুপ আহিছে বুলি মই গম পাইছো এই কাৰণে মই অসমত কিছু কথা ৰাখিব বিচাৰিছো বাকি মই ইংৰাজীত কম I am speaking a few lines in Assamese because I understand some people from Assam are here. And this is addressed to the people of Assam, the citizens of this country, and those who are here on the bunch. Assam কোন আহিছে মই ধৰিব পৰা নাই নমস্কাৰ আমি ইয়াত কিয় আহিছোঁ এনআৰসি ডিসকাস কৰিবলৈ স্থিতিটো কি আপোনালোকৰ কি আপোনালোকে কি ফেস কৰিছে আপোনাৰ নিজৰ অভিজ্ঞতা কি কিন্তু মই ভাবিছো যে এনআৰসিটো আমি যদি এনআৰসি কথা যদি ওলায় দেন এটা ইস্যু আমি এৰিব নোৱাৰো এজন মানুহৰ কথা আমি এৰিব নোৱাৰো সেইটো হ'ল যে গোপীনাথ বৰদলৈ We cannot forget we are here today for one reason and one person, and that is the state of Assam is here on the map of India because of one man, and that man is Gopinath Bordoloi. Let's not forget that. Many of you, except those from Assam and those on the bench, will not have heard of Gopinath Bordoloi. But he was the premier of Assam pre-partition and after partition, and he stood like a rock between the possibility of Assam going to East Pakistan or to India. When the Congress leadership at the center, barring Mahatma Gandhi, objected to that position. He opposed the Cripps mission, the mission plan, which would have divided the country into sections, which would be dominated by states, provinces of religious minorities, and he opposed the fact that Assam would have to be under Bengal. So the concern about, in a way, Bengali domination, these are many things you may not like to hear, goes back a fairly long way. Having said that, Assam is a very beautiful land. It is my homeland. It is a place where I worked and lived, and my family has been for hundreds of years. And we feel very passionately about it. And we are deeply disturbed that there has been so much pain and harm inflicted on it and its people over many years. Today, we cannot see it as a land of binaries. It is not a land of binaries. It is a land of many complexities. It is not us versus them, you and the other. It is many others. It is many yous. It is many us's. In that little valley of barely 3.78 crore people is the history of India and South Asia put together. The Assamese speakers are a minority in Assam. I don't know how many of you know that. We are 48% of the population. Is there any other state with a population which has a linguistic, which is in the name of the state, but a linguistic minority? I'm saying this because I've addressed to some of you the issues that have been raised by Professor Hiren Gohai in his very fine article in the Hindu day before yesterday. We talked about the complexity of Assam and the need to see the NRC on the basis of that. In the 1920s, 30s and 40s, to curb what could have been a major uprising, peasant uprising in East Bengal, the British colonial rulers encouraged migration into Assam. It was a migration that was also encouraged by the Muslim League in the late 30s and 1940s of the government of Sir Muhammad Sadullah. And it was a process that continued into the late 40s with inflows as far as the 50s and 60s, tapering off in the 70s and 80s. But throughout this time, there has been this fear, this concern that the, quote, the Assamese, however you wish to define them, will become a minority in their own land. And that is the context of the NRC today. That will the Assamese, however you define them, those who are of Assam, become a minority, a demographic minority in their own land? I'm not justifying the NRC or saying this or that. I'm saying that this is the concern. Unless you address that fundamental concern, you will not be able to understand the deep anxieties that drive people to do what they do. I'm glad that we are having this hearing here. I was actually a member, I was on the tribunal a few months ago in Guwahati when a similar exercise was carried out, and we were struck by one thing. Of the number of Assamese people who had been called, only I think 3 were present. Aman, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was myself, Monirul Hussain, and one other person had come in 2 days. Yeah? And it is important to ask yourselves, as people who are sitting in Delhi, who are thinking of the difficulties and challenges of Assam, why this is so. Why is it that a majority of people or representatives or a significant number of the people that you are speaking about are not coming to listen to you or share their concerns with you? I do not speak for anybody. I don't speak for my organization, and I don't speak for anybody except for myself. I will share with you my views. And that is because I believe that there has been a sense in Assam, even as far back as 2011-12 when the program began, the NRC was mooted, that there was an opportunity to lay the ghosts of the past at rest. There was actually a kind of consensus that this was something that needed to be done in order to put the past behind us, if not bury it. That has not happened, and everybody is unhappy with the result. I think we run the risk of gross oversimplification by living and presenting binaries. As I said, I have traveled very extensively and lived very extensively across parts of the Northeast, especially my home state, in places which are not connected by road, light, or mobile. Saida has been to a few of them a few years ago. And I think that one of the great misconceptions that rises in Assam among the, shall we say, the gentry of the Assamese people is this high surge of Muslim population along the borders which for anybody who has studied demographics will understand that it is the problems of poverty visited on large families and high fertility rates. It is not as simple as a demographic change driven by migration. There is migration. That's a separate thing you have to also accept and deal with. But let us not ignore the fact there are these other issues which I have worked with a very distinguished Dr. Ilyas Ali he's a family planning leader in Assam. I've worked with him, and in the work that we do on healthcare on the islands of the Brahmaputra, he has been pioneering in pushing the concept of family planning. And it's not an easy thing to talk about there, but it is something that needs to be understood. But there are large families, there is a high fertility issue of high fertility, and there is demographic change on there. It's not just migration, it is this also. And I've studied the problem on both sides of the border, both in Bangladesh and in Assam. In Bangladesh, I've met people, I've been to villages where people speak Assamese and have been to Assam to work and travel back. There's some who lived there for decades. But so this is an issue that we cannot walk away from. It is not that possible. It is not possible at all. If you are going to talk about the NRC, you are going to talk about this issue, you are not going to be able to walk away from this. I'm sorry. And if you think you can, then you are sitting in judgment and demonizing people who have not just committed themselves to the idea of India, but have fought for India when India has let them down, time and again. When the Assam movement was rising, and we may agree or disagree with it, and the things that happened post the Assam movement, the terrible years that followed of violence, of conflict, of bombings and killings and massacres, of the gun culture that ruled for so many years, the violence of the state on people, how many voices were there? It is the voices who speak from the field that have been there for many years, and they will continue to be there. So let us not fall into the trap of Delhi deciding for Assam again what it should do and what it should not do. The fact that everybody is unhappy with the NRC points to a simple fact, that the issue, of course, is not as large as it is proclaimed to be, but it is an issue which remains. And I have great respect for the jury here. I know some of them personally and have known of the others and have read them very extensively. I know the organizers well and hold them in high esteem. They are deeply committed, law-abiding individuals committed to ensuring rights and a better life for our people. But let us please be anchored in reality and in what has happened. I would like, because I will not be staying long, it's sort of very tiring for me to stand and speak for much longer. I want to talk about two things, and then I would like to close. Three things, and then I'd like to close. Whatever you decide here cannot complicate the situation there. Whatever you decide here should not harm anybody who is living in Assam, who is facing stress of one kind or another. So whatever you decide, I'm sure you will decide with great equanimity and understanding of all sides, for there is not only one side. That's one. And we must be very careful of the words we use. Concentration camps, genocide. Words like that should not be used. These have been used in the past week only, and I am totally opposed to them, vehemently opposed to such use of such phrases. Because, frankly, what many were expecting has not turned out to be so. Everybody was saying that it's all going to be one-sided and this way. We are not happy with the NRC, but it's completely different to what was predicted and declared and pontificated upon and campaigned on. Are we prepared to take a lesson from that? So let us not demonize some and victimize others. I'm sorry. I will take a little time, take 2 more minutes to finish what I'm finishing. You don't have to hold up the pink sign anymore. Thank you. I think our primary effort must be on ensuring justice for those who are suffering. It does not really matter who they are. It does not matter whether they're from here or there or somewhere else, because under Article 21, everyone is protected. No person in the territory of India shall be deprived of his life or liberty without due process. And it doesn't say citizen. So that fundamental protection must be ensured by all of us to reach each one of the 1.9 million people. The government of Assam has made a statement, not once but several times, that it will seek to give full support to everybody who's off the list. That's the first time it's made any such statement, because until a few weeks ago it was, declaring that it will crack down on everybody. And I think you need to really look at this issue, because if we are to deal with the issue in the larger perspective of migration, then how do you deal with the informal process of migration, which remain a contentious issue not just in Assam but other parts of the country. In closing, I'd like to share with you that I'm not on the NRC. I made a choice last year or 2 years ago that I do not need another marker for my citizenship. I'm not a resident of Assam, although we have property there. We have hundreds of relatives there, good, bad, and indifferent. Many good friends, wonderful friends. But I'm not on the NRC, and although my brother is, we have to come to a decision, and that's a family decision, whether I apply to go on the NRC, because it means the issue of property. But then it may be something for you to consider, because as former justices of the Supreme Court and the High Court and legal luminaries, does it disadvantage a person who is an Indian and a non-resident Assamese if he's not on the NRC? How does it vitiate his rights or her rights as an individual and an Indian? Does it make him or her a second-class citizen? Or is the NRC more powerful than the citizenship I hold as a passport holder and a voter in this country? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hazarika, for leaving us with many questions. May I now invite Abdul Kalam Azad from Assam, a doctoral student and community mobilizer. Abdul.
Colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, মই অকমান অসমীয়াত কৈ লওঁ সঞ্জয় ছাৰ এনেকুৱা এজন মানুহ যাৰ হয়তো মানে খুব কম মানুহ যোনজন মানুহে মোক মোৰ ওপৰত ইমান বেছি প্ৰভাৱ পেলাইছে when I was a student of TISS Guwahati I went to a documentary film screening. That film was made by him. The name of the film is Where There Is No Road. That film is on his intervention in River Island, Chor areas. The film made me cry. And that was one of his initiative, even his writing. I went to Bangladesh to study as a intern in one of the organizations. I think that was also inspired by him. So it's a great honor for me to speak after Sanjay sir. So I got inspiration from him. At the same time, I have a different perspective. I differ from him on many issues, especially as he was telling the stories of migration and how Gopinath Bordoloi actually helped remain Assam in India. Another thing is that those Muslim, so-called immigrant Muslim and their leadership who supported Bordoloi, today they are being asked, their descendants are being asked to prove their citizenship. They are being sent notice from the Foreigners Tribunal to prove their Indian citizenship. So how this happened? So I would like to start with my own childhood memories. What I feel is that for my forefathers, for my ancestors, the most precious thing in their life was the land. I grew up listening to the stories of acquiring land, sometimes with hard-earned money and sometimes with loyalty and sometimes with betrayal. The land has been the main thing for them. Today when I study why land is so important for them, when I study the history of today's Bangladesh and my own country, I get to know that how my forefathers were subjected to land deprivation under the role of zamidars. And whereas in Assam, when Assam became part of colonial India, British India, one of the British military officer, his name was Major John Butler. When he visited Assam, he wrote that it seemed totally devoid of man, beasts, or birds. A death-like stillness everywhere prevailed. This stillness, this vast tract of fertile land was huge opportunity for the British. What they did, they discovered tea in Upper Assam, and in Lower Assam, this fertile tract of land, they found it useful for jute cultivation and growing more food for the indentured laborers who were brought to Upper Assam tea garden areas from the central India. So my forefathers, my ancestors were brought from Bengal to Assam. So it was not their fault. But today, when people like Sanjoy Hazarika, people like Hiren Guhai, for us, they are not just one Assamese, they are, for us, they are epitome of courage. When these figures, they tell us that, you have a problem, and your problem is that your ancestors were brought from Bengal, or they were part of the conspiracy of a Muslim League to make Assam part of Bengal, of Pakistan or today's Bangladesh. We were not part in that. Our forefathers were for India. They were supporting Gopinath Bordoloi. But what they received in 1946, when Gopinath Bordoloi became the premier of Assam, large scale evictions happened, and our forefathers were called illegal immigrants from East Bengal. After a few years, when India got partition, in that polarization, after partition we got the NRC, the first NRC. We should also remember that in our mainstream narrative, we never talk about the partition and post-partition riots in Assam, but it was there. No one is accepting that. So official figure says that at least 53,000 families, Muslim families, they were forced to leave the country and they came back after Nehru-Liaquat Pact. These 53,000 families, they were not part of the 51 NRC. If you travel further, starting from 60s, we got the PIP, Prevention of Infiltration from Pakistan. The narrative of anti-immigrant, it continued. This is very interesting data. Chief Minister, the then Chief Minister of Assam, Bimala Prasad Chalikha, he told in the floor of the Legislative Assembly in 1969 that all the illegal immigrants from East Pakistan have been sent back. So it was said after sending officially more than 192,000 immigrants, so-called immigrants, without following any rule. And he said in the floor of the house that there is no more infiltrator in Assam, so the PIP should be abandoned. But what we see after that, we see the Assam movement. And I do not need to talk about the violent side of the Assam movement. Then what we got? Assam Accord. Today's NRC, we say that this is we got it from that NRC. Those people, those who were doing this movement, they got the power. They people like Prafulla Mahanto, Mitra Phukan, they became the ministers in Assam, those who were doing the agitation. But after coming to power, they realized no, it's not like that these people are Bangladeshi, but the harassment continued. What we got the D-voters in 1997. What we got, though the PIP was abandoned, but the border police remain active. So the harassment, it continued for the Muslims. And if we see, since we talk about the land, Sanjoy Hazarika sir has been working in the Chor area for years. Those people, they have been getting displaced every year because of erosion. But if you see their land rights, despite spending generations they are cultivating on those land, but they are not getting the land rights. Once the state government wanted to do the survey and provide the land patta to those people, but the agitating groups in Assam like ASU, they opposed the move and the land patta was stopped. If we see what happened after the AGP government came to power, eviction of Muslim peasants from government land continued. In some cases, the orders, the circulars were so partisan. It says like the illegal immigrants should be evicted, and in those places, those lands, indigenous people should be settled at the same time. And this eviction didn't stop in any government. All the governments, be it Congress, AGP, or the present government. So present government is, it has been breaking all its record. In the first 6 months, they evicted more than 3,000 people. At least 4 people died. 2 were killed in police firing. In recent cases in Karbi Anglong, one woman was brutalized. She was pregnant. After getting physically assaulted, she delivered a baby boy. She died in the hospital, the baby also died. And the eviction is continuing. And most of these eviction victims are Bengal-origin Assamese Muslims. The NRC, since we're talking about NRC, there has been, I agree that there has been some sort of narrative that Muslim didn't wanted NRC. It's not true. Muslim of Assam, especially the Bengal-origin Muslim of Assam, they wanted NRC to get rid of the century-long harassment and persecution. I remember, ever since the process started, especially the young people, we went to every village and in communities to make the NRC acceptable to the communities. Group of young people, they did everything to help the people fill up their forms, help the people to attend the hearings, because we wanted that NRC would be closer to everything. We will get the equal status in Assam. No one would dare to call us illegal immigrants. No one would dare to call us Mia Bangladeshi. But what we get today, when this number came, before publication of this final NRC, especially organizations like ASU, they were all in favor of as NRC. We were questioning the issues with the procedural issues with the NRC, but they were thinking that we are questioning NRC. We didn't question the NRC. But when the number came, they were not happy because the number was only 19 lakhs, and the speculation is that more than half of them are Hindus. They wanted the number would be 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs, or even 1 crore. In fact, sometimes their figure is more than the population of Bengal-origin Assamese Muslims. Today, when this number came, they are not happy. So what the government is saying, the most powerful minister in Sonowal government, they are saying that they have steel power, they have the Foreigners Act. They are threatening to use the border police. Border police is not just a small group of police officers. It's a huge force in Assam. The special department with IGP, 500 plus strength. They are active in all villages, especially in Bengali Hindu and Bengal-origin Assamese Muslim communities. So they will send the refer, whether his or her name included in the NRC or not, it doesn't matter. Most importantly, I would take only 1 minute here. So last thing I want to bring to your notice is that the central government and the state government formed a high-level committee to provide constitutional safeguard to Assamese people as per the mandates of Assam Accord. In that committee, there are 3 members from ASU, but not a single member from Bengal-origin Assamese Muslim community, not a single member from Bengali Hindu community, not a single member from any tribal groups. And that group, that high-level committee is going to decide the fate of Assamese people. Their reservation in jobs, reservation in land rights, reservation in from panchayat to parliament in elections. The speculation is that they are not going to include Bengal-origin Assamese Muslims within their definition of Assamese people. And if that is done, then if someone is included in the NRC or not, it doesn't matter. Maybe my name is included in the NRC, but if that definition of Assamese people doesn't include me, I won't get the benefit of this constitutional safeguard. So I request juries and experts as well as colleagues and friends that if we need a prosperous Assam, we need a peaceful Assam, we need to bring the communities together. we do not need further compartmentalization. এইখিনি কৈ মই শেষ কৰিছোঁ। জয় আই অসম।
I'm reading out this statement by Mitra Phukan. She's an Assamese writer, translator, and columnist. She couldn't come, but she sent a recorded statement, a written statement, which I'll read out. The National Register of Citizens is finally out after a long and tortuous journey. The milestones along this route have already been mentioned and need no reiterating. It is pertinent to note here that of the approximately 40 lakh left out of the final draft rolls, the number has come down to about a little over 19 lakhs out of the 3 crore who had applied. This number is likely to go down further after appeals have been heard, for which a period of 120 days has been given. There was hope in civil society in Assam that the NRC would bring some kind of closure to a long and fractious dispute about identity. The NRC has been awaited with mixed feelings, anticipation, as well as dread. And now that it's finally out, it has turned out that this too will not be the final word in any way. Almost all political parties, as well as powerful All Assam Students' Union, have expressed their dissatisfaction with the document. Like most things, there are justifications on both sides, but today the greater sentiment is the anti-Muslim one. And when it comes to the Muslim immigrant of Bengali origin, there are all kinds of historical and social pulls, linguistic and religious, that combine to make them a hated other for some people, not, it needs to be said, for all. Almost 2 million people are now called upon to prove their citizenship once more. Among them are Hindus, Muslims, people of Bengali as well as Nepali origin, as well as Assamese, tribals, as well as non-tribals. In a land that has seen so much violence and unrest in the recent past, where devastating floods and erosions are an annual occurrence, where development is badly lagging behind the rest of the country, it is hoped that the end of this entire exercise is over peacefully. We need to move ahead. We need to tackle economic and employment issues. The fear now is that the state may descend into the spiral of unrest, which was so devastating in the past. There is another point to be made here. There is nothing inhuman per se in the demand for an error-free NRC, especially in the light of the historical fact that many refugees did come into the region during the creation of Bangladesh. There should be nothing ambiguous about who is a citizen, who is not. Certainly, it does not come from a mindset of xenophobia. And it is heartening to see that among all the negative stories about the hardships faced by people having to prove their citizenship, there are also stories of compassion and humanity. People, sons and daughters of the soil, if you will, who have come together spontaneously to provide succor to those of limited means, of all religious persuasions, who need to find the correct documents, who need help in going to the NRC center. There has been legal and logistical aid given. It is to be hoped that it is with this spirit of humanity that will win ultimately. My take on the entire NRC exercise has been from the start the same. In brief, these are: 1. The National Register of Citizens cannot, in practical terms, be an exercise that is carried out in just one state of the country. Assam is not closeted away from the rest of the country. There are inward and outward migrations happening all the time. How can one just take one state and decide to base citizenship on that? It is supposed to be a National Register of Citizens, not an Assam register. 2. The whole process has been entrusted to the bureaucrats of Assam. They are not known for either their efficiency or their honesty. How can they cope with a work of such a sensitive nature, of such magnitude? They are being given huge powers to decide the fate of people. 3. The whole process is strange. One has to go through some complicated legacy data. To give my own example, I almost didn't make the cut because my late father worked and voted outside what is now the state of Assam before the cut-off year of 1971. His property here was bought after 1971. Neither did I have his certificates. Luckily, a cousin rescued me and pointed me to my grandfather's legacy data. His name figured in the 1951 list. My own voting history in Assam started after the cut-off year, and my educational certificates are from another state. 4. I was shocked to realize that having a current passport or a voter's identity card is not a valid proof of citizenship. I still do not understand why. After all, background checks are always made while issuing passports. 5. Assam is a state of shifting borders. Shillong, now in Meghalaya, was Assam's capital for decades. Many people now in Assam worked and studied there. Their legacy data is difficult to access. I myself know a person who finds his name missing in the draft rolls because of this. I believe there are many such. And 6, given the topography of the state, it is unrealistic to base proof of citizenship on documentary evidence alone. Women, especially, will be victims. As things are playing out today in practical terms, matters have sometimes taken a very inhuman turn. To make people rush off to distant NRC centers at very short notices for re-verification is cruel, especially given the condition of floods at that time and the levels of poverty. There are reports of suicides already. People whose names did not appear in the draft rolls are suffering from depression. I know how this feels firsthand. The names of my 2 sons were missing from the first draft rolls. They were there in the final draft rolls, but if I, an educated, empowered person, could feel that kind of insecurity in the interim, I cannot even imagine what a person living on the margins must be feeling. Also, it worries me greatly that things seem to be taking a communal turn. The Assam agitation was not communal. This time around, the situation seems to be slowly changing. Things have turned out to be much more complicated than those who pressed for the NRC ever envisaged. Obviously, things have not been thought through. Not least of this is, what will happen to those whose names do not figure in the NRC? This NRC can never be the final document proving citizenship. It is too controversial, too full of flaws. At most, it can be a base on which to go forward. And most urgently, the borders should be sealed as soon as possible. We stand today at a crossroads. We need to choose the path ahead with care, with humanity and fairness to all. This should include both the indigenous people, whose worries about being swamped by outsiders should be addressed, as well as those others also. Those who are perceived to be others, but are genuine citizens, should not be treated as outsiders. And those who are actually illegal immigrants should be dealt with impartially, without religious or linguistic considerations. Perhaps one way out, is to disenfranchise them, leaving their rights to property and to work intact. Thank you.
I have a question to Sanjay. Mr. Sanjoy Hazarika, I have a question to you. See, all 3 speakers seem to agree that the NRC was necessary for different reasons, including the last speaker. You mentioned in your address, you referred to Article 21 by talking about the fate of these almost 2 million people. Now, after hearing the testimony of Mr. Abdul Kalam and how the evictions are taking place and how the people are marginalized. So, so how you think that that is definitely there are some flaws in the process. So what would be the solution for these 2 million people? Where they are going to go? You said that you just refer to Article 21, but in reality, what is the future action or future course?
Can you take this?
Thank you, Justice Shah. I don't know if I have an answer. What I would like to share with you is something that I worked on many years ago, and which was actually in the ambit of the government, which I designed a kind of a work permit for people to come from Bangladesh or neighboring countries to work in Assam or any part of India and go back after a temporary work permit, which would encourage labor-induced migration, because that was the need at the time, and so on. Now, obviously that never went beyond a certain point, because the government didn't accept it. What I think you're going to have is a situation, and this is where it's critical for us to consider the issue of citizenship and statelessness. That needs to be addressed. My understanding is that those who will finally exhaust the judicial process, however long it takes, and suppose they're not on the list, to find themselves declared a foreigner, I think the government it will be impossible for them to be deported, because Bangladesh has never accepted that there is out-migration. The only other thing that could happen is the disenfranchisement. And restoration, in my view, the restoration to the electoral list after a period of time. Now, this actually happened through the Assam Accord in 1985, when 75,000 approximately largely Hindus who came from East Pakistan between 66 and 71 were disenfranchised and then put back from the electoral law after 10 years. But the current government does not want that. What I understand from a television discussion with one of the leaders of the current government in Assam is that they would slice the rights mandate into several layers. What would be taken away would be the right to vote and the right to hold permanent property. The other rights would remain: the right to work for others or for themselves, earn a livelihood, education and health, or I don't know how that will work out. That's still in the future. This is, as you can see, even from what we have seen, from what I saw in Assam a few days ago coming back, and even what I read today, is still a work in progress. Nobody quite knows how this will work out, because the Pandora's box has been opened and nobody really has any answers. But that's it.
Any more questions?
This question is also for Professor Sanjay. So with the number less than 6% and the final number after exhausting the foreign tribunal and judicial remedies, if say this number is 3 to 4 lakhs, how it is going to affect the outcome of an election? If this is all we are going to do, that you will not have a right to vote and you will have all other rights. It's an insignificant minority which in no way will adversely affect the election outcome.
politics is all about symbolism, first and foremost. It's not about what happens on the ground for most, as we all know. This has been a major election issue in Assam for 70 years. 70 years. The Communist Party won an election on it in 1946. And it's not going to go away because since everybody is unhappy with it, everybody is also making assertions that they will go back to court or they will use some other existing laws to prolong the matter. There is also this concern that is emerging that there will be efforts to do this in other parts of the country. So it remains, whether it's 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs or 330 lakhs, it remains an issue that unless you see, the problem I see in many of our friends, the approach is that the problem is there inside Assam. No, the problem is also within and outside. And when I say outside, without Assam, it's not just in the country of India, it is also on the border. Unless you're able to show a very clear signal to people within the region that your borders, actually there is a stoppage of migration at the border, because as for those of us who studied migration, demographics and population change across the world, it's not just Assam or anything else. It is how these things work. Whether it's Mexicans in the United States or whatever, the modus operandi is the same. And if you're able to stop people at the border and there's a pushback at the border without violence, from both sides, that's the only way you're going to stop illegal migration. But once people come in, it's a question of identifying them. What do you do? Is there a problem of migration or not? From my friend Abdul Kalam, I am completely against all violation of rights of people who've been there for decades. I mean, this is completely unacceptable. But there is an issue which can't be wished away. This is the problem. And you cannot discuss the NRC without having at some point, perhaps later, to address that issue. I'm sorry that I cannot stay for much longer, but I thought I would just share that with you.